Alrighty, what is good, YouTube, and welcome into the 14th episode of Catch and Counter with Jack and Nibs. I am Jack. We got Mr. I Told You So, Nibs. So, Nibs, our Colorado Buffaloes, we were just watching them, so it was tough. You know, we wanted them to pull out the dub. They didn't pull it out, but besides that, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great, bro. I'm actually in Arizona, so the Wildcats getting the dub is actually all right for me. Maybe I get to see a bowl game this year, but you know what? I'm down with Prime U. I mean, but you know what? The fact that they were even in competitive games, this was a 3-point game. It's not like they got blown out. They haven't been getting blown out except for the Oregon game. So I'm still fucking with them, but it's catch and counter, baby. Fuck with us or fuck off. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, that's a fact. And even, yeah, for Colorado, we'll get into obviously all the boxing too, but for even everything they've done, they've had some losses recently, but they've still already overachieved. Like we talked about before, they're only expected to win 2 or 3 games. So it'll be interesting to see how they keep going forward. I mean, I'm all in on Coach Prime too, so I think he's building something special up there. So we're doing good.
Truth, bro.
He is. He is for sure. And someone else who also, we're having a good week. Someone else who had a good week also is Jamel Herring, someone who I got to interview earlier this year. Is a really cool guy. I got to speak to on camera and off camera for a little bit. Picked up a big victory, knocked out Nick Molina in the first round. Now, Molina's a guy I've gotten to see him fight. I saw him fight earlier this summer. A good, tough local guy, rugged guy, but just Jamel was just too sharp for him. You could see that from the first round. I think the first left hand he landed bloodied Molina's nose. He got 2 knockdowns. So Jamel Herring now, all of a sudden, we got a bunch of guys at 130. We're going to preview a 130 title fight in a little bit, but another name to kind of throw around there for opponents for guys. So what do you think about Jamel Herring and his comeback and just kind of, he wants to make one more run at a title. So what do you think about that too?
So, look, here's what I'll say about Jamel Herring is, we talk about this all the time. You get guys with a couple of losses, and next thing you know, people want to say, oh, well, they're washed up, they're trash. That you got to look at who the losses are to, man. Before his he got 2 back-to-back losses to Shakur and Jermaine Ortiz, right? So, we're not talking about bums. We're not talking about guys at the lower realm. You know what I'm saying? And outside of the Shakur fight, it wasn't like he was completely, whitewashed. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's still competitive. And, prior to that, I mean, last time he lost before that was 2017. So, we're talking about 5 years. Dude's a world champion. He's a vet and in multiple ways. He's a vet in the game and a vet, for our country. So you got to put some respect on his name. He's still, 24-4. You know what I mean? He picks up a good win, good, easy win against Nicholas Molina, like you said, guy who's been fighting locally there. But I like that he came back and was impressive, right? This wasn't a struggle for him. We've seen a lot where guys take some time off or they get back-to-back L's. They try to come back. Jarrett Hurd, as an example, right? You put him in with a guy who, he's supposed to beat, and then he gets his ass whipped or he loses or it's way more competitive than we expect it to be. He came back, he won the fight the way he was supposed to win the fight, and I'm fucking with him, man. Like I think he can give a lot of people in the division problems. I think that once you start getting to the top of the division, it gets a little bit trickier, there for him. But I want to see what he can do, man. Simplify, baby.
Yeah, so we got shout out to Hybrid in the chat saying hello to everybody. And Herring is a stand-up, respectable man. That's a fact. And there are a lot of good people in boxing, but I don't think there's anybody who I could say is a better person than Jamel Herring. Even just when you see him, you always see these guys. They look like great people, just through the TV screens or whatever. But being able to meet him in person, I could say it was great. I mean, he would have sat and talked to me that whole day at the weigh-ins for the Shakur fight back in April. So great dude. I want to give him respect and give everybody respect. Obviously, Veterans Day recently, so anybody who has served or anything like that, we want to give you guys all the respect in the world, and we appreciate that without a doubt. But for Jamel Herring now, he puts himself, like I said, in the mix at 130. He's with Lou DiBella, so he can kind of fight on any network, so which is good for him. I know there's a few different names he's been looking at. I know Joe Cordina is a fight that he wants. He wants to go fight in the UK. I think that would be really cool for him. And I think that's even, I'd probably pick Cordina, but after last week, that's a fight that could be winnable for Jamel. I know like the Navarrete Conceicao winner, a fight that we'll talk about in a little bit, is another one too. And then whenever we talk about 130, you know I'm going to throw my guy Abraham Nova in the mix too. So him, Valdez, I think there's a lot of different opponents there. So are there any of those matchups, or are you just down to see Jamel against any of these guys at 130?
You know what? Like I said, I think he can mix it up with just about everybody, right? I think the names that you just mentioned, you know, look on paper, some of these guys should be able to beat him and beat him fairly easily. But then you look at what he brings to the table. People weren't expecting him to knock out Carl Frampton the way he did, right? People were expecting that to be a much more competitive fight. Lamont Roach Jr., that's another good one. The Ito fight, like all those fights. The Ito fight, that was a fight he was supposed to lose. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you look at that and you go, well, shit. I mean, outside of again, the Shakur Stevensons of the world, or the guys at the tippity top. Hey, I don't know. I'll say this though. I think you can put him in pretty much with anybody you just named, and he's got a shot. I'd put some money on him.
And that's the thing is, I think, as you said, even if he's the underdog, I think he'd be competitive. Even a guy like a Navarrete, I think that he's got a style. Being a southpaw, Jamel's got the skills, so I think he's an interesting style matchup against any of those guys. So I'd definitely be interested to see that. Moving on now, we had some recent news in boxing. We have a new world champion, and no, they did not win the title in the ring. But to me, that's not something that I don't want to kind of demean, because I think this person's has all the talent in the world of being a world champion. They're now officially a world champion. That is Jaron Boots Ennis. The IBF stripped Terrence Crawford of his title earlier this week. Now Boots is a champion. So there's a lot of talk about all this email champion stuff about guys not earning their belts in the ring and about just the hypocrisy of the sanctioning bodies. But what are your overall thoughts on Boots being a world champion and the decision that was made with the IBF?
So, and we talked about this before, but I'll say this, man. I think that stripping Terrence Crawford, to me, in this situation, and I'm not saying that this is going to be the same across the board, but I think you look at the situation, right? You have a guy who beat the guy. He's running it back with the guy, right, that just had the belt. And you're penalizing him for taking on his contract, duties. He's got to fight Spence again. No matter whether he likes it or not, whether Spence likes it or not, they got to run it back, right? So if he beats the guy who had the belts, why are you taking the belt from him? He didn't beat, a interim champion. He didn't beat a contender. He didn't beat somebody where they were, vying for the open belt. He beat the dude. So, and he's not even announced that he's jumping weight classes yet. For all we know, they could be running this back at 147. So, as far as I'm concerned, he's a unified champ. He should be able to get a chance to go ahead and defend that. Now, as far as Boots is concerned, that's not Boots' fault, right? The IBF's rules are what they are. A lot of people, give the IBF shit. At least I can say this: they're enforcing their rule, which is, if you win the fight, you've got to face the mandatory. The only thing that trumps that is a unification bout, right? Or in some cases that they'll give you a slide for a mega fight within the division, right? But that's why Spence was able to get, like you mentioned before, he was able to get all those skates. But I'll say this: Boots has earned it. I mean, he's won every fight that he's had. He's beat everybody that they put in front of him. He was never going to get Bud anyway. Bud was going to have his rematch with Spence and then either move up or move on, which Bud has earned the right to do. So I think this, maybe brings a little bit of clarity. It makes it where now he's got a full title. Whoever he fights next, this will be a full championship and put some more money in his pockets. So I'm good with it for Boots. Congratulations to him. Hats off. He hasn't done anything wrong. He's earned that strap that he has. I just think that they should have given Bud the right to defend his belt.
Yeah, when we got Hybrid, kind of saying the same things we were. Saludos to Jesus also in the chat by saying he's happy Boots is a champion now. Boots would have fought anyone to get the belt. Hate that everyone's calling him an email champ. I like Spence, but the division has been held up for too long. That's one of the things we talked about, just that there wasn't a mandatory in between a lot of the time for Spence. He did have the 2 unifications with Porter and with Ugas, and even he took Danny Garcia in between then, but Boots wasn't even around at that time. It would have been Abu Kukarov, I believe, who ended up losing to Cody Crowley anyway, so that's what kind of delayed the whole mandatory thing. But overall, I'm cool with the decision. It is funny how we see a lot of people complain because they allow these guys to hold on for belts for too long, and then as soon as the guy is stripped, people complain too. So I guess you're never going to make boxing fans too happy. At the end of the day, there's always going to be something to complain about. But I can see why both sides, just like both sides on this one, I can see Crawford's side saying that they had just won the belt, but I don't think, as you said, he's looking in, as Jesus says, he's looking for the bigger fight to this point. So if he's not going to fight Boots, then you might as well come up off that belt now. First of all, you save the 3% of the sanctioning fees, which we still don't really know what that money's used for. So if you can keep it in your pocket, I'm always good with that for the fighters to be able to keep their money in their pocket. But so Boots is the full champion now. And as you guys said, he would have fought anybody for the belt. So I think it's good to see him get this belt. And now he has a bit more leverage on his side being a full champion too. Before, it was easier for people to say he was high risk, low reward. And now having the belt, do you think that it might make it easier for him to be able to get opponents now because he does have that legit IBF title?
Of course. And when you look at it like this too, right? It's going to be easier for him to get opponents because the IBF is going to make him fight them, right? Like they're going to say, hey, look, now you've got to fight Boots. If you want the belt, come get it, right? Well, the only problem I think Boots is going to have is what he wants to do next, right? Because, obviously you're always going to want the big money, right? You're always going to want to take the biggest fights available, get the biggest money available, right? But what do you do next is important for him. Start picking your fights correctly, but also don't be, fighting these bullshit fights either. So to me, I'm interested. Okay, now you got the strap, young man. Let's see what you do with it.
Yep. And this is kind of, none of this is official, but I've been looking at the rankings, talking with some people. So this seems what the rough draft kind of plan for Boots is going forward. The rumor is that his first title defense could be against Jamal James. So even that's a cool guy who's in the rankings. I'm cool with that. Is it someone I expect to beat Boots? No, but that's a name guy that we've seen before. So that's an okay kind of first defense. And then after that, they want to look into a unification fight, which could be against Emanuel Stanionis. It could be against Barrios if him and Cody Crowley end up fighting. Maybe Keith Thurman is in the mix, and maybe Keith ends up wanting to fight Boots now that there's a title on the line. Not so sure about that one, but either Barrios in a unification or Stanionis in a unification would be cool too. If Jamal James is the first defense, I'm cool with that. What do you think about that little plan that they have? Is there anybody else you'd want to see in there, or does that plan sound about right for Boots going forward?
You know what? I think that the Barrios fight makes sense. He just beat Ugas. That would be a decent scrap. It'd be a fight we'd all be picking Boots to win, right? But, to be honest with you, Stanionis, we all, we want to see that. That I think that's a scrap where, I don't know if I call it 50-50, but it'd be a fight, I'd be really interested to watch, right? Like, I can't say that that's a lock for Boots to win. So, I'm tuning in because, there's a chance he could actually lose that fight. I don't know, man. Jamal James, no disrespect to him. I just don't think he's on Boots' level. So for me, I wouldn't have interest in watching. I'm a huge boxing fan, so I'm gonna watch it anyway. But it's not one of them fights where I'm like, yeah, I gotta watch this. But I, like you said, I would respect it because it's at least he's not fighting some bum. So I'll give him that.
Yeah, but I know just going by the IBF rankings, I was pulling it up now too. So Cody Crowley is the highest ranked guy in the IBF, but I think he's going to look, and if you're his team too, if you're looking, okay, I'm high ranked in the IBF and the WBC. If you get to pick between Boots and Barrios, I'm pretty sure he's probably going to go the Barrios route. And I would pick Barrios to win that fight, but I think Crowley's going to go the WBC route. After that is Iko Essuman from the UK. I think he's in the middle, or he has a fight scheduled, so he couldn't be next. So Jamal James is the next guy rated on that list. So I think that's where that stems from opponent-wise for Boots.
Yeah, I mean, you got to fight who you can. I mean, especially if they make them fight a mandatory, next, which I think is what their whole thing is the whole reason, Bud got stripped in the first place. So if he has to fight a mandatory and that's Jamal, then hey, so be it. Handle your business, keep your belt, keep it pushing. But we all want to see him now start to fight, get those fights we've all been talking about these last couple of years. You've been talking about, the train wreck that is at 147, all the the fights being blocked, this, that, and the third. Okay, make them now. You know what I'm saying? Let's stop making some excuses. Bud and Spencer are gonna do their dance, and once that's over, let's open the floodgates and get some real scraps going on.
That's a fact. And going to Hybrid's comment here, I mean, I second that too. I'm sure you would also that even the Boots and Bud fight, I think you'd have to, not that it's a fight we're going to see, but I think that's a hell of a fight too. You'd have to favor Crawford just off of his just what he's done in the sport, especially coming off the performance he did. But Boots is a real problem. I see Jesus. I think he's saying Ennis is not unbeatable, which nobody's unbeatable in this world. They're all human. But at the end of the day, I think that he's a real problem. And I'm just happy to see that my guy is going to have the opportunity to get some of these big fights, these unification fights going forward. Because it's been kind of a slow, it's not a slow rise because we've known who he was, but it's been harder for him to get opponents. So I'm just hoping with this belt, it's a little easier for him going forward. Because he's got
Hey, I
that.
mean,
We talk about guys with number one pound for pound potential too. And to me, Boots checks basically damn near every single box you can ask for in a fighter too.
Let's call it what it is. Boots has not had easy ways the last couple of fights. He clearly won that Chikadasian fight, but let's be clear that he still had problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like it was a cakewalk for him because it's a style that isn't conducive to what he does best. Which you didn't have a guy who was standing there in front of him just banging away, trying to box with him or fight with him like you did Roman Villa. Roman Villa was you teed it up. That's that's exactly what Boots needs, right? But if you get a guy who can box like Chikadasian but has power and can actually and can pop you, I think that gives Boots the most problems. Guys who can actually move around and give him angles and this, that, and the third, which is some shit Bud does great. I'll say this though, and again, people are gonna say I'm a hater, this, that, and the third. Bud is on a completely different level than Boots. Boots is not ready for Bud. I think if they fight, yes, it'll be prime time, Broadway, lights, all that, right? Give me all that shit. Boots gets his ass whipped if he fights Bud right now. Now, in a year or two, maybe, that's a little bit more competitive. I'm telling you right now, this version of Bud Crawford, he don't want that smoke.
Yeah, I'd have to favor him. I think it could be a little more competitive than that, but unfortunately, it seems like the fight we're not going to see. And you made a good point with Boots too about just a guy who moves laterally, and that's still why a fight like the Thurman fight is a fight that still interests me. I know a lot of people are down on Keith. We've seen even his win over Barrios age pretty well. Problem is he hasn't fought since then. He's fought once in the last 5 years, but that would be a fight that same thing where we'd pick Boots to win, but I think Keith can cause some issues for him and some things that we would want to see going forward with him also.
Yeah, look, give me that fight.
Mm-hmm.
Boots in one time, I'll take that. You know what I mean? Like, shit, I don't give a fuck where they fighting. I'll take that all day. Because there's one thing about Keith Thurman. He's nobody's bitch. He's not gonna come in and lay down. He's not gonna follow the program. You know what I'm saying? He's gonna come in there and try to get his strap. And Boots, we all love him. Boots is different. Boots has got more talent than I think. It was pointed out in the chat. He's there. It's hard to say there's anybody other than Bud. Maybe if Spence got his shit together, who could beat him? Real talk. Even though the one-time fight would be competitive, I believe. I picked Boots to stop him late. Because that's how high we are on him. But again, those are the fights we want to see, though. Those are the fights that'll get people excited to watch you fight other people, right? And I think that's when I say, here's what you do with it now. That should be the next fight. There should be either a big name, right, like a Keith Thurman, a Barrios. These are guys who have names. These are guys you can sell, right? Jamal James is cute and all. He works for the rankings, right? But let's be real clear. People want to see you now fight these bigger names. They want to, even if Barrios is a guy we all think Boots will wipe the floor with. You know what I mean? I think it'll be more competitive than people may think. But even if it's a fight we expect you to win, we want to see you in those fights first. So if you fight, Keith Thurman next, and then you got to fight Jamal James next after that, we can give you a pass. You know what I mean? But you've been fighting Jamal Jameses this whole time. Now we want to see the Keith Thurmans. We want to see the Barrioses. We want to see that. So that would be my only thing. Give me something I want to see next.
Yeah, I feel you on that. Barrios, I know his trainer, Bob Santos, has already said that that's a fight they're interested in. So, man, talk about a dude who ducks no smoke. That is Mario Barrios 100% of the way. So, Boots has had a tough time. Like I said, he's fought a bunch of really good fighters. We haven't seen him fight the great guys yet, and hopefully having this belt will allow him to fight greater fighters. And now, moving on, but also keep staying on the topic of vacant belts. Shakur Stevenson is kind of a similar situation where Devin Haney beat Vasily Lomachenko. And then the WBC wasted no time in telling him if he's going to fight Regis Prograis, he's going to decide which weight he wants to stay at for their WBC belt. So he's going to move up to 140 for their WBC belt, hold on to his other three belts, but then the WBC at 135 is now vacant. So we have a fight between Shakur Stevenson and Edwin De Los Santos. It was supposed to be Frank Martin at first. Well, even before that, it was supposed to be Vasily Lomachenko and Isaac Cruz. They both went the other way, and then Frank Martin ended up going the other way after some back and forth, and now we have Edwin De Los Santos. Fight that I mean, Shakur is the rightful big favorite, but I do wonder if Edwin De Los Santos can give Shakur any adversity, something we haven't seen Shakur deal with at all. What are your thoughts on this matchup, and do you think Edwin De Los Santos is a live dog at all, or do you think this is just another easy 12-0 walk in the park or a stoppage for Shakur?
It's hard to say because it's Shakur, right? So talent-wise, this should be a walk in the park for him. But it depends on what version of Edwin De Los Santos shows up, right? If he shows up and everything works perfectly for him, this should be a somewhat competitive fight. And that's all praise to what Shakur is able to do and what he's proven to do against, top level competition. Everybody that was supposed to give him a test, he's passed with flying colors up to this point. Is Edwin De Los Santos, to me, I'll say this. I think that it was a better matchup, him getting the De Los Santos fight than the Frank Martin fight. And so I think this is going to be a little bit more exciting because I do think that for De Los Santos's part, I think he can make it a little bit more competitive because of his style. And he's got a shot because, he can pop a little bit. But, you could say that against everybody Shakur faces and he makes him look silly. So, at the end of the day, you can't pick against Shakur Stevenson, but at the same time, De Los Santos has got a shot because he is a legit guy, right? He's not a bum. He's earned his way in. So, there'll be moments where he'll look like he's got a shot. But I think at the end of the day, Shakur's just too good. He's just too good.
Yeah, and with De Los Santos, even though he's not the most accomplished dude Shakur has ever been in the ring with, I do think it's the most dangerous and could be the toughest fight he's ever been in. Just we've never seen Shakur in with a guy who has all of these things, just a guy who's in their prime, who's explosive, who also has educated feet. So we've seen guys who have had the accomplishments like Jamel Herring who have good feet, but they're not really explosive. We've seen guys like a Valdez was in his prime and he's explosive, but doesn't have the educated feet to go along with it. So I think this is kind of a combination of all those things. De Los Santos isn't the same name as those kind of guys, but I think it could be a really good fight. De Los Santos, he's grown on me as a fighter. I remember he did lose to William Foster earlier last year, but even that was a fight that I think was at 130. He seems bigger and stronger at 135. He's shown in his last two fights, he's shown me two different things. In the Rio fight, he showed me that he can kind of rough up, he can counter punch really well, and he can kind of fight in the fire, and he can deliver. And that was a big thing that you got to see as an underdog. And then might have been even more impressed with his performance against Joseph Adorno, Adorno is someone, even though he's taken some losses, they've always been competitive. Is someone who I'm still decently high on. Not that he's a pound for pound guy or anything, but Adorno's a good skilled guy. And De Los Santos, the way he was able to box, the way he was able to move with his feet, with his hands, I just think he showed me more dimensions that I gave him credit for before that. So I think if he's able to punch in between Shakur's punches, if he's able to, even one thing you want to do, if you're fighting for Shakur, you got to let your hands go. One of the things I worried about with Frank Martin was Frank kind of waits for the perfect shot a bit too much in some of his fights. We saw that in his last fight too, where he kind of gave up a lot of rounds and then hurt the guy late and was able to pull the fight out. But it's tougher to do against a dude like Shakur Stevenson. De Los Santos, I think, is more likely to kind of just let his hands go, whether you're hitting the body, the arms, shoulders, whatever you can kind of touch. I think you got to be able to take advantage of that. And Shakur's been more aggressive as of late, I think, trying to step to opponents and make a statement. So if he's going to do that and let his hands go, we've seen De Los Santos against Rayo, who, not that Rayo is Shakur, but we've seen him punch in between punches. And I think that's when Shakur could get caught, is when he's kind of, Shakur's up a few rounds, really starting to get going, trying to put that pressure on him. And he could get caught, and De Los Santos does, unlike other guys, have that one punch power that could maybe give him some issues on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're going to give Shakur his flowers, rightfully so, because of, we're all fans of what he does, right? But again, let's give De Los Santos his flowers, right? Yeah, he loses to William Foster in 22, but then you look at what he did since, right? 3 wins, 2 by knockout, and to me, the most impressive, like you just said, was the Adorno fight, because he beat Adorno at his own game every step of the way. And that's what's going to give. That's why I said, look, he's going to have moments where he looks like he's going to have a chance to win this fight. And he might actually, because, again, his knockout power is real. He's got 14 knockouts and the 16 wins, and they're legit knockouts. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this dude's got legit power. He's stopping people, not just, getting volume punches. He's not the guy who's getting just a whole bunch of volume punch TKOs, right? Mm-hmm. Which I hate with a passion. But he's getting legit stoppages. But then again, what makes this fight more intriguing is the Adorno fight. Here he is, a guy we expect to give him some problems, maybe, even beat him because he's a more technical fighter. He beat him at his own game, and it was almost a wipeout. Like, I mean, there are people who didn't give Adorno a round. You know what I'm saying? And he thoroughly put it on him, and it makes the Shakur fight that much more intriguing, because it's like, okay, well, if he can do that to Adorno, he's got a shot against Shakur. And again, like you said, we're not calling Adorno, Shakur by any stretch of the imagination. But again, I look at it like this, right? Inoue was supposed to have problems in his last fight. You know what I mean? And it turned out to be something completely different. I think Shakur is that level too, right? Like, on paper, this guy should give him some problems, but I think he's just another level ahead. And that's and I want to say this. I think De Los Santos loses this fight, but I think he'll still be a champion someday. Like, I don't think this hurts his championship stock.
Yeah, it's a perfect kind of fight where people are almost expecting him to lose every round. So you might as well roll the dice. And if you win a few rounds, it can even become kind of like when Isaac Cruz lost to Tank. Like, bro, Isaac Cruz hasn't beaten anybody great since then, and his name is still talked about as a top contender just because of that fight. So I think it's a perfect example, perfect opportunity for him to kind of just take advantage of what he's got in front of him. But to me, I think the difference in this fight still will be, even though De Los Santos, he is explosive, he's athletic, he can punch, he can box, he can fight on the inside, fight on the outside. To me, I just think Shakur's, he's just a master at controlling the distance. And I think he controls the distance between him and his opponent maybe better than anybody else in the sport. The way he uses that lead hand, he kind of does hold that jab hand out there, which I know some people don't like because some referees shouldn't allow it. But to me, it's still a rangefinder, and the way he's able to have that left hand behind him too. He just he's able to master it so well. Every time, if you take one step forward, he's taken, or we always say, even for inches wise, if someone's moving 6 inches forward, he's moving 8 inches backwards. So like, he's always in position. He's never in a spot where he can get caught. Maybe that changes with the guy who's athletic, like De Los Santos. And even I see Jesus saying De Los Santos can match Shakur with the speed, but he's sometimes out of position. and just speaks exactly to my point, where I just think that Shakur is going to put Edwin in positions where he can make him pay. I don't think it's going to be a stoppage for Shakur. I do think Shakur wins a decision, but it will be interesting to see how does the fight play out. Is it a really entertaining fight where De Los Santos maybe lands here and there, but he's really throwing his hands a lot, and maybe that could lead to a late stoppage? Or do we see it be a fight like the Nakatia fight with Shakur a few years ago, where Shakur gets touched by the power, feels the power early, and then kind of just boxes to a dull, just 12 round, 12-0 shutout decision? So what is your pick for this fight? Are you picking Shakur to win by decision, to Shakur by late stoppage, and how do you see them getting to that result?
Yeah, I mean, this should be a UD 12 for Shakur. But I'll say this, De Los Santos, again, as I mentioned earlier, he's going to have his moments, because just like we just got done saying, he does create his own shots. Like I said, that's why, to me, the Frank Martin was not going to be a fight, to me, that was going to be as competitive. And that's just my opinion, because, like, to what you just said, Frank kind of waits. He wants the pretty shots. He wants the perfect, setup. De Los Santos is going to create his own shots. And he understands the fact that, hey, as long as he's touching him, right? You like you said, you touch him on the arms, you touch him on the chest, on the sides, anywhere he can feel your power, right? That gets people to thinking different shit, right? If you hit a motherfucker on the shoulder hard enough, you know what I mean? They get to thinking different, right? So he understands that, and I think that's why this is going to be an interesting fight for at least the first couple of rounds. But I think Shakur just does his thing and ends up boxing circles around him.
Yep, I definitely see that. So we got some comments. Jesus was saying that the Latin Grammys will be on Thursday, so that they may lose some eyes on TV. I did not know that, so that's interesting. It's an interesting thing to think about. Hybrid says, let's be honest, Shakur is being ducked. I'm excited for this fight. We haven't seen Shakur push to his limits, in my opinion. And that's what I want to see from Shakur, too. I do think it's fair to say, even if I think you can always make the argument that he could have taken the Haney fight even at 25%. That's something we've talked about before, so we don't have to go into detail on that again. But it is fair to say that they got to De Los Santos because there were a bunch of other guys who turned down the fight with Shakur. So that's certainly a fair point. And the push to the limits point is something, I think that's exactly what we're looking for in this fight, where we've seen Devin Haney in fights where he's had to kind of dig deep. We've seen Tank Davis in the Barrios fight, or other fights where he's had to kind of think things through and come from behind in fights. I want to see that same thing with Shakur too. And I'm not sure if De Los Santos is the guy to do it, but I think there's a slight chance that he could be. He has some of the attributes to do it, so I'll be interested to see that. And then he's saying here, there's talks of William Zepeda wanting to fight Shakur. I know Zepeda was one of those ones who turned down Shakur for an eliminator last year because there's a belt on the line. Maybe that changes, but that's another fight that I would pick Shakur to win. But another interesting style matchup. I want to see, does Zepeda's 100 punches around? Can he even throw that many punches? Is it effective against Shakur? So that's a fight I'd be interested to see too. And then Jesus saying it's Top Rank expecting big viewership. I'm probably not crazy viewership, but I think it should do decent with Shakur as a headline, with Navarrete there too. A Thursday night's an interesting dynamic on that, so we'll see how that goes. But you got any comments on any of those comments that the chat share with us right there?
So I mean, Shakur. I think the only person that was actually ducking Shakur is Frank Martin, and that's obvious. I
will not to speak over you, but I do think Isaac Cruz probably could come into that category too, where maybe if he gets the Tank fight, then there's nothing wrong with that. But if he doesn't get the Tank fight, he's had 2 opportunities to fight Shakur, and he's kind of looked the other way on that too. With Zepeda also.
And the reason I gave the reason I gave Pitbull a slide on that is because he is waiting for the Tank, right? Mm-hmm. He's waiting to run it back with Tank, and I'm not gonna, as much as I don't think that's the route Isak should go, and I think he should have taken the Shakur fight. I understand it, right? Tank is prime time. He's the bigger payday by far, right? And all love to Shakur Stevenson. He's not blockbuster like Tank is yet. Tank is on a whole nother level when it comes to box office. The only person beating him is Canelo at this point, right? When it comes to putting butts in seats. like I say this all the time. If you can get Madonna to come watch you fight, you big time, baby. So, and Shakur's not there yet. Will he get there? We don't know. But I'll say this: I think obviously the only person, again, in my opinion, that ducks him, we can throw Pitbull in there, but is Frank Martin. I think, to be honest with you, the Devin Haney fight, I think Devin Haney, he got those belts, right? He did. Devin Haney was playing chess. Devin Haney he was going to take that Kambosos fight because he knew that was easy money. Then when he got the belts, he said, okay, now that I've got all these belts, you've got to do what I say. Shakur didn't want to do that because Shakur still felt like he was the A side, but at the same time, hey, the dude's got all the belts. He's right. He does get to tell you what to do to a certain extent, right? And the only person that could have got a pass in the division on the Haney, telling them what to do is Tank. Let's be real clear. Tank's the only person that you can't tell what to do at this point. He is the A side of A sides in that division. So, I think the reason Tank hasn't taken that fight yet is because it's just financial. I think it's like, hey, look, you want to fight me? Here's the money. Here's what you're going to get. I think Shakur wants more money, and they need to get that worked out. But, from what I've heard, for what we hear, Shakur is ready to take the Tank fight. He thinks he can beat Tank. I don't know about that one. Now that would be big time. That one right there would be huge. And I think if he wins this belt, that might be a fight that we get later on down the road.
I'd love to see it. The problem with that fight, even too, is you have people saying that Tank's team wouldn't allow him to take that fight, which we're not sure about that. Even Bob Arum is saying just that we want to keep Shakur. Like, we don't want to have Shakur help out their side. So just like the bullshit we deal with in politics too, because Arum has been on record saying that that's not a fight they want to make right now. It's like, why would you not want to? It's a huge fight, but nonetheless, we got shout out to another one of our guys in the chat. He said he's late, catching you on a lunch break. We appreciate you using your lunch break on us chopping up boxing. He said Isaac Cruz needs to fight Frank Martin under the same promotion, and he's not a fan of Isaac Cruz's opponents. It's a Tank fight. That's 100% a fact. That's exactly what we were saying too. Just that Isaac Cruz is one of those guys that he lost to Tank in a close fight, and then he hasn't done almost anything since then, and he's still relevant just because he was able to go 12 rounds with Tank. And then he says, I believe Shakur will be Tank's toughest fight. That's just my opinion. That's a fight that we'd love to see. That's a huge, huge fight. I do think that we get it at some point. I just hope it's sooner rather than later, but I do not know. I know the fight that Shakur is targeting for next is he does want the Lomachenko fight next. So is that a fight that you'd still want to see with Lomachenko coming off the Haney loss? Or to me, it's a fight that I think is still intriguing because of how Lomachenko performed in the Haney fight. It was a close fight that I still thought Devin could have edged it, but people saying that they thought Lomachenko won. So I think, to me, I know he's got 3 losses now and he just lost to Haney, but that's still a fight that I'm cool with because if Shakur's not going to fight Tank and if Devin is moving up, I think Lomachenko is the best guy out there at that point. So I'm definitely cool with that fight. But what do you think if that was his first title defense?
If you're going to make Lomachenko, you need to make it now for it to matter to me, right? Because let's not forget Lomachenko is not a spring chicken. You know what I'm saying? Lomachenko's up there in age, but even with that being said, I thought he won the Haney fight. I'm on record of saying it. I'm going to continue to say it. I thought he beat Devin Haney, but I thought it was close. So I'm not mad at the fact that Devin Haney won. So yeah, I'm not one of these. You know me. I'm not one of these win-loss guys. I think Lomachenko can give Shakur all the problems he wants. Right? If you want smoke, Lomachenko got something for you. But that's a bad motherfucker right there. You know what I'm saying? So people need to understand, even if you beat him, right, it is not going to be easy. Period. He fought Orlando Salido. He fought Orlando Salido his second fight. Period. Come on, bro. You know what I'm saying? At that time, Orlando was like the man. So let's be real clear who you're getting in that instance. But for me, if that's going to be the fight that's next after this fight, it needs to be like quick. I don't want to let it marinate, as they so to speak, right? But for everything else, I want to say, man, Roy Jones been dropping gems lately. But he said it. You can't profess to be the best if you're not willing to take the test. And he said that's what the problem in boxing is right now. All these guys are telling everybody that'll listen to them that they're the best, but they keep refusing to take the tests and fight the other guys. He said nobody wants to lose. Everybody wants to keep their O. Everybody wants to be marketable as, the unbeaten guy. He said what made fights so great back in the day was, hey, guys were fighting each other. Win, lose, or draw, they were fighting each other and sometimes running it back, and that's why there were trilogies back then, because the best were fighting the best. And you might get, I beat you the first time, you beat me the second. That's why we got to run it back again. So, and that's what fight fans want to see. They want to see the best fight the best. And, if it's competitive, hell, give it to me again. So that's what we want. We want Tank versus Shakur. We want Haney versus Shakur. Haney's got some problems right now, with Regis.
Mm-hmm.
People, I don't know why people are steadily overlooking Regis Prograis. Like, this is going to be easy work for Devin. It is not. So, but again, he's fighting one of the best. So I can't knock what Devin is doing right now. He's fighting Regis Prograis. Okay, you did, but I'm really interested in see what Shakur does next, because I do think he wins this fight fairly easily. He might have some issues adjusting early on, but I think he wins this. And then I want to see what Tank does when he comes back next year, and I think that'll give us some clarity as to who the man is.
Yes, sir, and I agree. And I want y'all to take note on this Friday. Hit the like button for us. We don't ask for much from you guys, but that does help us out a lot, so we appreciate it. So y'all heard the man right there. Do what he says, so hit the like button for us. He also said he thinks Loma going to go the WBO route while we wait to see what Haney's going to do. He's going to fight. So he's talking about Denny's Barinchek. He said that's his prediction. That's a good prediction. That's what I had thought initially too. What I've been hearing now is that it's going to be Lomachenko's going to go the IBF route, and he's going to fight Kambosos. I don't know if it was just because they were Ukrainian. I know that I think Denny's and Lomachenko have a friendly relationship. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, the politics or anything like that. But I do think that Lomachenko and Kambosos will be next, and I think that would set up a unification between him and Shakur afterwards. Because give Kambosos all the respect in the world. I don't think he's going to beat Lomachenko. So I think Shakur and Lomachenko in a unification. Sign me up for that next year.
Bro, look, we can say what we want to about what we think about Kambosos' talent inside the boxing ring, right? There's one thing you cannot deny about George Kambosos. That motherfucker got some balls on him, because when it comes to smoke, he is leading the pack, and he is literally saying, "I'll fight all y'all." You know what I mean? And he gets thoroughly outclassed against Devin Haney. And is still saying, well, shit, come on, give it to me again. I'm going to get you this next time. He loses, he gracefully, I might add, right? He gave dude all the love, but he said, all right, cool, I want him again. Like, George Kambosos, I give him that. He might not win any of these fights, but he's ready for all the smoke, though.
No, that's a fact. And even the Lomachenko fight was a fight they were looking at before. He would probably be, I'm sure he would wish that there was somebody else a little higher up in the rankings so he wouldn't have to fight Lomachenko for a belt. But former unified champion, he's getting another crack. Lomachenko's getting another crack. I do think Lomachenko wins, and hopefully we see him in Shakur next year. Another guy, though, who is a potential Shakur opponent going forward is somebody who's also won this card. Especially with Top Rank or some of these other cards, when they stack the events like this and you got two champions on the same card, like with Inouye and Robesi earlier this year, I'm starting to think like, okay, are they looking towards the future at all? Are they looking to match these two guys up? Are they kind of just getting the feel, seeing the vibe and stuff? And I think that that's what they're doing with Emanuel Navarrete and Shakur. But I do think Emanuel Navarrete has got to be careful, because I think he's in a sneaky, interesting fight this weekend against Robson Conceicao, who's an Olympic gold medalist, somebody who's got 2 losses. We always talk about it's not about you. It's not about that you lost. It's about who you lost to. He's got 2 losses to Valdez, a fight I thought he won, and then against Shakur in a fight. I mean, he lost to Shakur, but everyone loses to Shakur. And I thought that Shakur did a decent. I thought Conceicao did a decent job in those early rounds. Clearly, Shakur was going to be just too much for him in the end. But sneaky fight, I think, in this one. Navarrete is a classic guy who fights to his level of opposition. We saw him looked suspect in the Liam Wilson fight. Then he looked like $1 million in the Valdez fight. So he's been up and down. And I think that this is the kind of guy. Conceicao is also not a guy who he doesn't really go forward at all. He's a smart guy. And I just think that, just he's going to look to capitalize on the mistakes that Navarrete is going to make. Navarrete does still make some mistakes. He masks his mistakes with his length, his athleticism, and he picks his shots really well. But I think a guy like Conceicao, I think, can make it tricky. So I think that Navarrete is the rightful favorite in this fight. But he's about the same odds as a favorite as Shakur is. And I think that was a bit surprising because I think Conceicao is much more alive in this fight. And I see we got a comment here talking about Navarrete. Navarrete was just at 26 recently, but I think part of it is lifestyle habits for Navarrete. And I know that just at 135 is something that they're looking to do in the future. So it might not be next. It might be a year or two down the line, but it's definitely something that they are looking at going forward. But what do you think about Navarrete in this fight? Do you think it's just because a lot of people think he could smoke Conceicao? So do you think that's going to happen? Or are you with me in thinking this could be a sneaky good fight?
Hello?
No, look, you there? I can hear you. If Nibs isn't there, I'll keep going on real quick about that fight. But no, it's an interesting one. I think that for all the things that Navarrete does well, I think Conceicao is the kind of guy that, don't get me wrong, he could get overwhelmed with the volume and with just the attack of Navarrete. But I think that he's the kind of guy in there that can make the fight interesting. I think that he as long as he survives an onslaught in the first few rounds and as long as he gets to the back half of the fight, I do think that he can make an interesting fight. And I am still picking Navarrete to win, but I think it's a fight that could be a lot closer than a lot of people realize it could be. And now, trust me, I agree with this comment 100% too. I think that if I were him, I would do the same thing. I would wait and I would look to unify. I think 135 would be tough for him. I just wonder that I think he had some trouble making weight in his last fight, so don't quote me on that. But if it's a thing where, and maybe it could be a one-off, where we see maybe Navarrete fights Shakur just because he's a WBO super champ, so he could actually, Shakur is a WBC, so he couldn't do that. But maybe he uses his super champ status. He fights for the vacant WBO against, so the Barinchik guy you mentioned earlier, the guy from Ukraine, maybe we see Navarrete move up, fight him for the vacant belt, and then he could fight Shakur, and then he could still go back down to 130. So I'm not saying he's going to go up to 135 for good, but it is something that they're thinking about. Nibs, are you back with us? See, I think you're on mute right now, my guy. Nibs is on mute. What's up?
Yeah.
Like we got him
We
back.
got some technical difficulties, but I'm back. You know what I mean? You know, we rolling with the punches, baby.
Yes.
What I was going to say is, yeah, I mean, when you see Emanuel Navarrete in the ring, it's obvious, you know, he's cutting weight to make his weight division as it is, right? He's 5'7", so, you know, at 5'7", you can fill out all the way up to 147 comfortably, right? So, you know, him fighting at 135, I don't think is far-fetched. You know, he's got height and reach that's decent, even though, you know, Conceicao is actually 3 inches taller. I think Navarrete's got a couple inches on him in reach. So, you know, he's an interesting fighter at 135, I think, you know, he could give just about anybody the business. And then as long as his power carries up, right? We always say that if your power carries up, then he can be as dangerous as anybody else. So, you know, and I think that, you know, for my money, I think he could. I think his power could translate well up. I still think, you know, the fight with Shakur, it'd be interesting to say him and Shakur about the same height, you know, about the same, you know, arm length, I believe. So it'd be interesting to watch that. But I think that what Navarrete has that could actually give Shakur some problems is his unorthodox style and throwing punches, right? I mean, again, we talk about that, you know, that knuckle dragger uppercut he throws, you know, from Spain, you know what I'm saying? And it lands. Like people know it's coming. It's telegraphed as shit, but they can't stop it. So, you know, and then he's got a chin. He's got heart. So, you know, he's not going to be one of these guys that just stops. He proved that in the Liam Wilson fight. So I think a fight with him and Shakur would actually be really interesting to watch. But I think he needs to focus on Robson Conceicao right now, because if you overlook him, you could mess around, fuck around, and find out this dude isn't an easy win. He's not, doesn't have knockout power, one punch knockout power. He can't stop people, but he's he's got a style that's going to give Navarrete some problems. I fully believe Navarrete can win this fight, but I wouldn't be surprised if Conceicao makes this very interesting.
So Hybrid's saying basically the same thing as us. He's saying he picking Navarrete, but Conceicao's no walk in the park. He also believes Conceicao beat Valdez, and then the comments here saying they wanted Navarrete and Albert Bell. Now that's a fight I would like to see too. I want to see my guy Abraham Nova in there with Navarrete too. But Albert Bell, I think he fights later on tonight. A real sleeper at 130. Somebody who talk about someone with real good boxing skills and a guy who's high risk, low reward. I'd love to see him get rewarded with a title shot at some point too. But are you thinking for this Navarrete fight? Are you thinking it's a decision kind of fight? Are you thinking that he stops Conceicao? Because I know Navarrete's been stopping some guys. Like he stopped Liam Wilson. He stopped a few guys before that. Went to decision with Valdez, but Valdez fought through he got his jaw broken and ended up fighting the distance and ended up winning that fight against Scott Quigg before. So all-time toughness kind of guy. But I'm going decision on this fight. I just think Conceicao, just as you said, he's the kind of guy. What I was saying as you were dealing with the difficulties for a few seconds is that he's the kind of guy that's not going to, unless the pressure and the volume of Navarrete just completely overwhelms him, he's not the kind of guy that's going to come forward and give Navarrete what he wants. And I think he's going to capitalize on Navarrete's mistakes and maybe slow down the volume enough to make it a competitive fight and a decision fight. So what do you think? Do you agree with me, or do you just think that he's going to be too much and it's a stoppage for Navarrete?
Yeah, I don't think he stops him. And I hate to parrot what you said, but it's a fact, right? Like the facts are the facts, right? The reason we agree is because we're telling the truth. So, when you look at Shakur Stevenson and you look at Oscar Valdez, before Oscar's back-to-back losses, right? People held him at the top. Shakur is obviously at the top. This dude went the distance with both of them, right? Oscar Valdez, before running into Conceicao, was knocking everybody silly. You know what I'm saying? And I don't think he really ever came close to stopping Conceicao. So I don't think that Navarrete will knock him out. Not to say that he can't. If he does, it would be late. I would see maybe a 10-round KO or TKO. Maybe stop him on his feet. He's not putting him to sleep, I don't think. For my money, I would say either a late round TKO, unanimous 12.
Yep. So I'm the same thing. I will go unanimous decision. Close, but unanimous, I think. You might see maybe a majority decision. One scorecard in there might be a draw, but I think that's a fight where Navarrete might not reach the expectations people want for this fight, but I do think he will be the rightful winner in the end. But Conceicao, man, I mean, he's just one of these guys. It's funny because even if he loses this fight in a close fight, it'll be his third loss, but he would have lost to the three of the top dudes in the division. So if Conceicao turns around and he still wants to fight my guy, Abraham Nova, if he wants to fight an Albert Bell, I'd be willing to see him in with any of these other guys still, as long as he keeps being competitive in these losses, like I think he will be on Thursday.
Yeah, he's a tricky guy. Like, he's win, lose, or draw, you're not going to look good. I mean, again, unless your name is Shakur Stevenson, or Tank Davis, you are not going to look really good against this kid, right? He's going to come in. He's going to give you problems. I should say kid. He's 35 years old. Shit. But, he's only got 19 fights, so he's relatively young in the ring as far as his pro career. But, he's going to give you problems. And he's tough as shit, So, although he's not a brawler, he's not afraid of that fight either. And that can make a tricky fight.
No, not for sure. As you said, Olympic gold medalist too. So he's been there, done that. He's seen a bunch of Navarrete is a really awkward style. Not that he's seen that style, but he's seen awkward styles before in a bunch of different ways, and he's been able to adapt. So we'll see if he can adapt on Thursday night. Real quick before we go into our whole fantasy fight Friday, which is now a Saturday for today, we'll just touch on this top rank undercard really quick because it's a really intriguing undercard. A few fights on here that I really, really like. So we have Troy Isley is going to be fighting Vladimir Hernandez. Hernandez is a guy who's gotten some upsets recently. He upset J. Rock Williams 2 years ago on the Wilder Fury undercard. Then he lost to Jesus Ramos, and then he upset Lorenzo Truck Simpson on a zone card earlier this year, one of the training partners of Tank Davis. We got Brian Norman Jr. in against Quinton Randall. We got 2 undefeated guys. This is a great, great fight. Quinton Randall, I know, is somebody who trains with Regis Prograis. I know a very, very skilled fighter, very underrated fighter. So I know Norman is the top-ranked guy, but I think that Quinton Randall is more than a live dog in that fight. We got Cash Flow, Floyd Diaz against Max Ornelius in this fight too. Another tricky fight where I think Cash Flow should win this fight, but it's kind of one of those Top Rank does this with their prospects. They kind of have what I call like kind of prove it fights or show where you're at fights at this point, where they make their guys still the favorites, but they're saying, okay, we want to see what you can do against a guy who's kind of another step up. And I think that's the same thing with the Troy Isley fight, where Troy was an Olympian. I think he's still trending on the path to be a very successful pro, but they're like, okay, we're going to put you in against the guy, not who's lost to other prospects or other good guys, the guy who's beaten some other guys. So I think that's what they're trying to do with some of these guys. Then we have Abdullah Mason is in a fight. He's not at the point where he's in any prove it kind of fight yet, but he's on his way to, I think, getting there in very soon time, because he's someone I view very highly. And then another guy I view very highly is Emiliano Vargas. His opponent, I don't know who it is. I don't know if it's been announced yet, but a lot of young talent on this card. Some really, I think 3 or 4 really intriguing fights, which you don't really see on undercard sometimes. So what are your thoughts on this undercard? Are there any fights that kind of jump out to you or anybody that you really, really want to see Thursday night?
All of it. Mm-hmm. All of it. And what I like is that this is a competitive undercard. It's got the matchmaking was done well, right? Mm-hmm. And I love it when that happens, bro. You know, you just talk about Troy Isley. You know, he's been matched, you know, brought along correctly. But again, when you get guys matched up well, you know, you can fuck around and find out about a guy we weren't even looking at, right? So I think this is one of those situations where they're going to be fun. Get your popcorn early, get your seat early, turn on the stream, turn on the fight, however you watching this, right? Get there early, watch these undercard fights. It's going to, I guarantee you, it's going to be worth your money. It's going to be entertaining as shit. Might fuck around and be more entertaining than the main card. Mm-hmm.
That's a fact. We got Hybrid saying the card is so good he's calling out sick on Thursday. So don't worry about that. Hey. We won't. We're with you on that one. We won't go telling your work or snitching or nothing like that. So no shame in that. Without it, that's a good card. Luckily for me, my classes will be done by then, and I don't work on Thursday, so I'm good on that. I lucked out on that one.
Hey, I may or may not have this stream on my computer, on one of my computer screens at work.
Yeah. Like we say, these are hypotheticals, of course. We're not saying that we are or not. In a hypothetical sense that you might have the opportunity to, you wouldn't be opposed to that. So we'll kind of frame it that way. If there was one guy in this undercard that you would say people should tune into and to watch, who would that one guy be real quickly before we go to our fantasy fights? Or one fighter, or we'll say one fighter and then one fight, one matchup. Stop. You could say damn near all of them, but I figure we'll kind of
yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where I kind of feel like if I say one, then I'm gonna say, you know what I mean, and that's why I said all of them. Like really, and I'm not saying that to cop out. I'm not trying to be, you know, political or anything. Like real shit. Give me all these fights, bro. Like again, I'm interested in all of these fights. I guarantee you, from top to bottom. Right, this is going to be one of the best undercards you've probably seen. You could take this undercard and put it on ESPN as a main card. That's how good it is. That's in my opinion. You could put this as an ESPN, you know, card or a you know, one of those you know, NBC, you know, specials. You could put this on.
Yeah, like a Friday night fights kind of thing like that. No, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And look, and I'd be happy as a pig in slop. So, to be honest with you, bro, I would love to be able to answer that, but my answer is, and I stand on it, is all of them. I want to see all of it.
You know what's even
Now
worse?
I know you got some names you're gonna throw out, but for me, again, this is what boxing is about, bro. For me, like it, I when was shit. It's been so long since I've been able to say that. Since I've been able to say all of them, you know what I'm saying?
For a
Like,
deep undercard too. Yeah, we're not talking just like a one lead in fight or anything. We're talking the whole thing too. It's crazy.
yeah, like if you're a fan of boxing and you've been watching these guys, you're like, is this like you almost feel like you're getting punked? Like, is this real?
Mhm.
All of them? Okay, bet. I'll take it. So, again, it's been a while since I've been able to say that. So I'm standing on it. Give me all of them. I'm respecting everybody on that card, top to bottom.
Yeah. You know what's a good card too? When as soon as I ask that question, I'm like, you know what? I might cop out of my own question too on that one. I don't know if I can give one person the shine. I'll go through the ones that I had mentioned first, but Troy Isley, Vladimir Hernandez is a fight that I think Troy will win. But this is the kind of fight that if Troy's not the guy I think he is, this is the fight he can certainly lose. And that's what we want to see from these prospects. Brian Norman and Quentin Randall. Fight that damn I might say Quentin Randall's the underdog. I'll say right here. I think Quentin Randall's got a good shot, and I might even pick him. I'll go out on a limb and say I'll pick Quentin Randall to win that fight. He's the underdog, but I think anytime you're picking underdogs to win against the home guy, I think that shows the matchmaking even more. And then we got Cashflow Diaz, Abdullah Mason, who Hybrid mentioned, who I think that's what the most common pick would be. And I always love me some Emiliano Vargas on these undercards too. He's somebody who, like Abdullah Mason, is so young, but so special. And anytime you can see Abdullah and Emiliano fight, I'm down for it because I think those two have pound for pound level talent in the future.
So so it's real easy, right, to get drunk on the whole cash flow thing. And I have been a fan of his in the past, a huge fan. But I'm gonna say this, man. He's got holes. He's not unbeatable, right? So on paper, yeah, it's real easy to say, well, he should win his fight, or Emiliano should win his fight. I mean, Emiliano. I mean, those Vargas boys, period, are putting in some work. I love it, but it's one of those things where I haven't seen enough of the Vargas kids for me to say, yeah, he's gonna smoke everybody that he's facing right now. But and then with cash flow, it's like, hey, he's had some trouble with some guys he should have rolled over. You feel me? And I feel like he's been a prospect way too long at this point in his career. I feel like cash flow should have already started to make some jumps that I think other guys that came out around the same time that he did have already started to do. You feel me? Like, he's not advancing to the level, at least for my money, at least for me, that I want to see. So it's hard for me to just say he's a lock. But
No, he's certainly.
I want to watch it.
I mean, he's certainly not. I would say Abdullah and Emiliano at this point are probably locks to win their fights. And nothing's ever a lock. A dude can go out there and we're not wishing this on anybody. A guy could go out there and wreck his knee or pull out their shoulder. Like, and crazy things can happen. So we're saying as far as if everything goes the way it should, those kids should be able to get it done. Emiliano, I do think that out of the three Vargas brothers, he has the highest ceiling to me. Just he started boxing when he was younger. The other two played sports. Amato played football. Fernando played basketball. So they didn't start boxing until they saw how good Emiliano was and the tournaments he was winning and stuff like that. So I think he has the highest ceiling. But I would say that cash flow, he kind of joins Troy Isley and Brian Norman more in that upset alert kind of spot for this weekend. Max Ornelius, his opponent, who's 15-1 now. He just lost a split decision to an undefeated fighter earlier this year. So it's an interesting fight. And as you said, some of the questions that you have, I think Top Rank has too, in there saying, okay, this is the kind of fight where we're either going to answer those questions. Well, those questions will be answered. Either he is that guy and they're going to step him up and he's going to move out of that prospect phase, like you're saying, or he continues to have problems and they're kind of not sure and his Top Rank future could be in jeopardy if this fight does go the wrong way. But those are the kind of fights that we want to see these guys in to answer some of these questions like you were saying you had.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's no knock on cash flow because ever since the YouTube videos with him and Floyd back in the day, right? Like I've been rocking with him. I thought he should have stayed with Floyd's team, to be honest with you. And and for all the smoke that people give Floyd and his team, they match their guys up well. I mean, look what they've done with Tank, bro. Like, let's be real clear. Tank is who he is because of the machine that was behind him and the way they matched him up. I think they were on their same trajectory with, cash flow. Now they had whatever they had and shit fell out. But I'm here to tell you, now I'm kind of like, well, maybe, maybe they knew something we didn't know. What's going on? Like he's just not, for me, he's like Luther Vandross's curl. It's just not quite all the way curled over, So he's just not all the way there yet. And but I hope that he finally starts to go the direction we want him to go, because I think he's got an immense amount of talent.
And that's the thing is, a lot of people that listen to us all the time, they know this anyways. But anytime we're saying some of these things about certain fighters, if we thought they were scrubs, bro, we wouldn't even mention these dudes. We're saying it because we have expectations for these dudes and we think that they can accomplish good things. So that's why we have questions about it. We're asking certain things because, like I said, if we just thought these dudes had no chance, they wouldn't even be in the show notes. We wouldn't even mention them. We would just skip right over it. There's a reason that we're talking about these dudes, and there's a reason that we're looking for some of these certain things because we think they can do good things. And even to go to your point with the Mayweather, they did a great job with Tank, but shit, I think it's even more impressive what they did with Rolly. He doesn't have half the talent Tank does, and they got that dude a fight against Tank and a world title. I mean, with the assist of Toney Weeks a little bit on that one, but I mean, I think that shows the example of what they're able to do with the guy who got into the sport late too.
And when you look at the Rolly machine, right? Like Rolly's super. He's kind of done what Ryan Garcia was doing, right? He's got a huge following on social media. He's talked his way into a world championship. Let's be clear. Now, to his credit, he had a belt before he fought Tank, right? I think it was an interim belt. Might have been
interim WBA, yeah. One of the 17 WBA.
Yeah, one of the 7. Yeah, one of those trinkets. But even at that means he's on the level, right? Mm-hmm. So when he got the Tank fight, and be real clear, he's probably gave Tank his hardest test in recent fights.
Mm-hmm. Right? Besides Barrios, I think I'd have to agree. And just because he had the punching power, Barrios was a different style, but no, I could see that. Yeah, he had us on the edge of our seat a little bit, wondering for a few seconds.
Bro, he literally gave Tank pause. Like Tank had to be like, "Oh shit, this dude really can hit that hard." You know what I'm saying? And he was showing that, okay, he wasn't just a one-trick pony. He had some skills. But then we found out what that chin does. And that chin is, Lord have mercy, is it horrible. But if he can protect his chin, he's still got a shot at doing some big things, right? I think they're trying to get him and Ryan to fight again or fight, for a bigger payday and all that. But yeah, you think about that. There's no other promoter that would have Rolly where he is, right? I think Tank is an easier sell because I think Tank is just who Tanky is. But other promoters might have wanted to marinate him longer, right? Which would have done him a disservice. I think the biggest thing that Floyd recognizes, this kid's ready. Let's get him in there, right? He's bringing in another kid right now. I can't recall his name off the top of my head. I know you're going to kill me for not.
Yeah, Kermel Moten. I got you on the name, but Kermel Moten is what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Moten, that's I keep forgetting his name. Mm-hmm. But the Moten kid, he's looking like the truth. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think they've got a machine there. But the only reason I bring that up is because you look at a lot of these other promoters, and I don't know why they're so scared to give these kids the smoke early, right? Let them fuck around and find out, but don't give up on him, just because he gets a loss or two. You know what I'm saying? Mickey Bay was with Floyd, and Mickey Bay took a couple L's. Floyd stuck with him, and I think he got another title, or at least another title fight.
After IBF title, I believe. Yep, I think he did.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, and Mickey Bay was one of those dudes that snuck up on people. Nobody was really fucking with him. Floyd put him in a position. You look at, and you look at what, I know I'm gonna, Felix is gonna be on his shit. You look at what Jake Paul is doing right now with MVP, right? What he's done for the female fighters in the world. Shit. Amanda Serrano's a fucking superstar now because of him. You know what I'm saying? Katie Taylor was going to be Katie Taylor, all that. But even some of the guys that he's starting to bring along, he's got some names he's going to be bringing along. They're doing it right, bro. I don't know. Maybe it's these older school guys. They're just not. They wait too long, and then the fights don't fucking matter anymore. And that's what we want to see. Is we want to see these guys get in right away. Let's find out what they are, and then you can play a little bit matchmaking down the road. But for all it is, some of these dudes are just are. But then you run into the cash flows where it's like, is he good? Is he really that good, or was it the machine?
That's why you brought up a good point of just about like finding how good these guys are. We all know if they're on TV, like these dudes are talented. They have the pedigree behind them. There's a reason they're in this spot. We just want to see on what level that they're on. That's why I do like these kind of fights. The fight he's in, the fight that Troy Asley's in, the fight that Brian Norman's in. They're in those fights where we can kind of find out, as you're saying. If you're a really good guy, yeah, you'll win these fights. You'll kind of keep stepping up. If you're not the guy that some people think you are, well, these are the fights that can kind of show that. And I think that's what we want to see out of these prospects. And that's why we're so happy to have this card on Thursday night.
All of them.
It's a fact. So now we got Fantasy Fight Friday. Well, I'm still calling it Fantasy Fight Friday because Fantasy Fight Saturday it don't roll off the tongue the same way Fantasy Fight Friday does. So it's all good.
The man said what he said. Mm-hmm. It's Fantasy Friday, goddammit.
Yes, sir. It is. But so we got two matchups for you guys. The first one we'll do is on the women's side. We got to give them their love because they give us great fights. I mean, we always support. We talk about them, their big fights just as much as we do the men's big fights. And boy, do we have a matchup right here. We have two GWOATs, I could say. One former one current one. And we're going to debate this right now. We're going to see even a son of a GOAT. Or no, geez, whoa. A daughter of a GOAT also in this one. So let me kind of slow down there. But we got Laila Ali against Claressa Shields. And now when people want to ask about these things, is it a matchup of them right now? No, it is not. Is it a matchup of them a few years ago? No, it is not. You take the prime version of Laila Ali, whatever you believe that to be, against the prime version of Claressa Shields, whatever you believe that to be. And that can also stem certain debates to see which version of each fighter you get. We talked about this with Tyson Fury and other fighters last week. But to me, I think for these two girls, it doesn't have to be a specific fight. I think it's just they had a stretch of prime fights. But so before we get into this, what are some advantages or disadvantages that you think one might have over the other? Because we'll give our picks after that, but kind of set the scene for us in this fight. What do you think this fight could look like?
So here's what you got to look at, right? They were actually talking about fighting each other. I think it was like a year or two ago. Mm-hmm. Claressa had actually called Laila Ali out because they were talking shit friendly to each other on social media. And then it turned into, hey, you want to run this smoke? And Laila Ali kind of respectively said, "You're not ready, for me, little girl. Go on about your business." But they were legitimately trying to get Laila Ali to actually fight Claressa Shields, which I think, for all the hardcore fans were glad this didn't happen. Laila Ali's had her run. But I tell you this though, if there's somebody who can come out of retirement, I mean, she is the original GWOAT, like you said. She is the OG. Here, look, and people, I know people are looking at Claressa and what she's accomplished, and kudos to her. We've given her all the praise on all ITR channels and platforms, right? Let's run the numbers. Laila Ali was 24-0, 21 knockouts. Claressa Shields is 14-0 with 2 knockouts. Now, all that being said, though, Claressa Shields is a multi-divisional champion. She's beaten literally pretty much all the best female fighters out right now, not named Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor. Like, if they've got a name and a decent record, she's beat them. She's gotten all the belts. I think this would be a super competitive knockdown drag-out fight for about 6 rounds, and I think Laila Ali is just too much. It's just too much, and I know I'm gonna catch shit. Please, do not come for me in the comments. Claressa,
in the DMs.
Claressa, I still love you, baby. You gonna beat it. And if you fight anybody that's currently out here, I'm picking you. Trust me, I will. But I think the reason Laila Ali went, and I'm not just picking her because she's Muhammad Ali's daughter, but I'm picking her because she's Muhammad Ali's fucking daughter. Look, Laila Ali had legitimate power. For anybody who watched female boxing back in the day, Laila Ali had it all. She could box her ass off, but she was dominant. You know what I'm saying? She had one punch power for a woman. She was legitimately sparring men and putting them on their ass. So for me, I think just the combination of it's one of those things where I think that Claressa Shields would finally run up against somebody she did not have the technical advantage over. And the power difference would be just too much for me. So I'd have to go Laila Ali.
Yeah. Well, Claressa Shields, if you're listening, don't worry because I got your back. I'm picking you in this one. I'm picking you in this one. I don't know if it's a little biased because I didn't watch Laila Ali fight live, but you guys know me. I've done my research, so I've looked some things up. So I get a reason behind this. I ain't saying shit to just say shit. I can back it up too. Laila clearly has the advantages to me in power and overall strength. Ain't no doubt about that. I don't think anybody would argue that. The knockout numbers that you had spoke to earlier, touch on that also. Claressa's advantages, which I think are the big thing, is the speed advantage, just in the overall boxing skills, but it's the hand speed and it's the foot speed advantage. That, to me, is where I would pick her to win. Now, am I saying that she washes Laila Ali? Hell to the no. I don't think she wins 10. I mean, it's not a fight she wins 10-0. I'm going to put some respect on Laila Ali's name, don't get me wrong, but I do have to pick Claressa Shields in this fight. I think we saw Claressa in a similar kind of matchup against Savannah Marshall. And not to say that they're the same, but I think they possess a lot of those same things, a lot of the same things that you're saying. And we had picked Claressa to win that fight, but a lot of the same things you're saying Laila would do. A lot of people were saying Savannah Marshall would be able to do. They're saying Christina Hammer would have been able to do. Like they're saying that these fighters would have been able to do. And even if I think Laila is a better version maybe than those fighters, I think that the fight looks kind of like the Savannah Marshall fight where, don't get me wrong, Laila, she'll get her shots in there. She'll make Claressa respect her without a doubt, but I think it might be too few and far between for her to win a decision. I think that Claressa wins it like a 7-3, maybe a 6-4, competitive but clear decision. I just think that the hand speed and more importantly, the foot speed is the difference. I think Laila could spend a lot of the night chasing her around. Don't get me wrong. If she's able to get her in the corner and start winging shots on her, Claressa could be in some hell, but I just think she has the boxing IQ. Laila's got a very underrated boxing IQ, also very underrated technique, like you spoke on too. She's a big power puncher, but it's not like she's just some crazy. She just wings crazy shots. She's fundamental with it too. I just think Claressa's more developed fundamentally, even, and I just think just the hand speed and the foot speed would be the difference because the power is big, but I think if Claressa's landing 3 or 4 shots to Laila's 2 or 3, I think that could be how she takes it.
Wow. So I mean, look, and to your point, bro, like it's a harder pick than people think. You know, for people that weren't fans of boxing, like yourself back in, Laila's day, right? Or you just didn't watch her fights. Female boxing wasn't what it is today. I mean, you literally had her and Ann Wolf back then, and that was it. Like that, Christy Martin, before them, but Christy Martin would get like, one-offs on undercard. She was never the main event, she did later on in her career, thanks mostly to Laila Ali, right? Because they fought. I'm here to tell you though, Laila Ali was the blueprint. You feel me? And if you look at it, they're almost pretty similar. Laila's like 5'10", Claressa's 5'8". I think Laila's got a little bit of a reach advantage on her, but they're very similar in styles. The only difference for me, again, is the power. And I think that Laila's boxing IQ, I mean, when you are Muhammad Ali's kid, you know what I'm saying? You should know how to fight. You know what I mean? So there's that. But you take away who her father is, because Nico isn't always, representing the name that well so far yet. But, when you look at Laila Ali, she is the second best Ali. And that's saying something when your daddy was the GOAT. The GOAT. We're talking about GOATs. Her daddy is the GOAT. So, like you said, the daughter of the GOAT. And, she was the GOAT before Claressa. I say that, for everything that you said about what Claressa would have as an advantage in the speed and the footwork, I think that the IQ would come in for Laila. She was just naturally bigger. You know what I mean? When you look at the two of them, she was naturally bigger. I think she would weigh, and that's why I said I think she could get a stoppage late because just the power itself. And let's face it, when you get hit by somebody with legitimate power and they're landing clean, I don't know, bro. But I tell you this, you could charge whatever the fuck you want to for that fight, and I'm paying.
Nah, it's a fact. And even for me, I still do sit and I think, and I look at your points. You make very good points. I do look at someone like Savannah Marshall to say that she was leaning some girls too, and Claressa was able to take those punches. And I just think that Laila, don't get me wrong, if Layla's going to land a lot of flush shots, you're damn right that she's going to have Claressa in some trouble. I just wonder how many of those clean shots, not that she's not going to, she will clearly land shots. Will she be able to land enough to change the tide of the fight? And if it's another thing we could talk about is the 12 3-minute rounds. Clearly, it would be, I'm sure, a 10 2-minute rounds fight. 12 3-minute rounds, you'd give me a little more pause on that because it gives Laila more time to set up her big power shot. But I think in the 10 2-minute round format, which we have right now, it's what Laila always fought in also. I think it helps Claressa Shields because she can get that activity going. I think it's less time for Laila to kind of wear her down in the fight also.
Hey, talk your shit, Jack. I mean, this is why we do these fantasy fights, baby. I picked a side, you picked a side, and we went with it. And again, here's to say, it would be a great fight, right? The reason we do we're doing these fantasy fights is because just think about that, right? Just think about how great of a fight that would have been or could have been if these two ladies just so happened to have been in the same era. You know what I'm saying? If Claressa was born 10 years earlier, you know what I mean? Like, imagine that shit, right? You got a 2-time Olympic champion versus the GOAT's daughter and the female GOAT at the time, Laila Ali. Come on, bro. You don't even have to sell the tickets. They selling themselves.
No, they do. Like you said, the fight would be big. The whole fight week would be huge too. Think about just the festivities during the fight week. You know that they would both talk their talk and sell the fight too.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the day, I am just sorry because Laila Ali would catch that L. I'm sorry about that, Laila. Don't kill me if you're hearing this. I'm sorry. I would pick Claressa Shields to beat anybody all time. And that's the thing is Laila Ali damn near would probably beat everybody else all time around those weight classes for the most part. Problem is, I just think she'd be up against the wrong one.
I am a fully self-aware man. If I saw Laila Ali in a dark alley, I'm shooting her in the leg. I don't want none of that smoke. I'm not trying to get my ass whooped by a woman in heels. Look, and if I saw Claressa Shields down the other alley, I'm shooting her in the other leg because I don't want her to whoop my ass either. Look, these women can whoop men's ass. Let's be real clear. Both of those, you could probably put both of them in a fight with a man or in or around their weight class, and it would either be very competitive or they would win outright. And that's not hyperbole. That's not bullshit. That's not just me saying it to hype this fantasy matchup. That's real talk, bro. You could put Claressa Shields in right now with some dudes in or around her weight class, and I'm not saying that they'd have a clear advantage over her. You feel me? But I don't know if that's an indictment on what men's boxing is doing right now, or just how great she is, right? So, yeah, I and Claressa, again, baby, I love you to death. You beautiful, you know what I'm saying? You're amazing, and I don't want you to whoop my ass, but I think Laila Ali will beat you. And Laila, don't try to beat me up because I told you I would shoot you in the leg if I saw you in the alley. But again, I think this would be because, like you pointed out too, right? And I didn't even get into this. You got two world-class shit talkers. Like the hype for this fight, bruh.
Exactly.
It's a whole different kind of smoke. But all right, we'll have to agree to disagree on this one, sir.
That's a fact. Like you said, Laila, give you all the respect in the world. for sure. And then Claressa, there's a better chance that you probably see this. So if you do, just remember who picked you to win at the end of the day. So that's all I'm gonna say on that. Now I'm playing,
Hey,
but we got
everybody
back
drop in your comments who's winning that.
That's what I was gonna say. So we got Salute Fight Family. It's the Fight Fanatic, formerly known as Backyard Prophet. Our guy, Backyard Prophet. Salute to you. He said Ann Wolf versus everybody. So Ann Wolf, don't get me wrong. She'll be in the mix for these fantasy fights too. Do not get me wrong. She is gonna be up in that mix for sure. Backyard Prophet, who do you say? We just discussed it. I don't know if you just hopped in, but we just talked about Claressa Shields versus Laila Ali. We're split. I got Shields. Nibs has Laila in that fight. So who would you pick in that fight as we go to move on to our next one? So we'll see what he says. We'll see what anybody else says. Any last comments on that one before we slide over to the last one before we wrap things up?
I would say this. It would be literally, and I genuinely mean this. That's one of those fights that people are going to talk about for a long time, especially people of my generation who grew up with Laila Ali and now watching what Claressa has done. I think those comparisons are always going to be made, right? And we'll never know, right, who would have won in their primes, obviously. But it's like, when we nitpick about, the Floyds versus Sugar Ray Leonard, the heavyweight fights that we went over, the Tysons fighting each other, all that. It's like we can say a million things about who would have won, but I tell you this though, this is why we do this. This is the even thought of that fight being something that could have happened. Oh.
Yeah, but think about how much women's boxing has grown, and think about how much of that fight happened, and if the timelines had matched up, how much that would have grown the sport even immensely. Just without it would have helped us get to the point where we're at, and I think then some. And so we got Backyard Prophet. I always knew you were really smart, dude. He's picking Claressa Shields in that fight, saying she's got no technical flaws. So I don't know if we want to stop the count now, but it seems like I might be winning on this one, but it's all good. So you got Bud and Spence, so you had your little glory, so maybe I'll take this.
Where's Pops Kelly at? Yeah. He's got to have my back. Where is he at? Get him in here.
We'll see where he's at. Even if he's not listening, I'll get him. I'll see what he says on that one afterwards for sure. It's a good one. So I'm sure you'd have some people saying Laila Ali on that also. We might have to put a poll out there and see, because you'll see some for both.
If you put that fight on at the Garden or like in Vegas, or even out in Saudi someplace, the amount of money that fight would generate. Look, if that was a fight that could legitimately happen, there'd be no male fight that could trump it. You could put Tank on the undercard. You could put Canelo on the undercard of that fight, bro. That's how big that is. You feel me? So, phew. But you guys are wrong. Okay. All right. Let's move on.
And look at that, Nibs. He apologizes, but he's going too. So maybe next time. Yeah, maybe next time that kind of backfired. Maybe next time we should have waited in the scene, but you put him on blast now. So
it's nepotism. He's picking his kid. Okay.
I don't know about that. We've disagreed many times before, but we'll move on now to our second fight. In this fight, for me, it's going to hurt me to pick the winner in this fight, because I really like both guys. Two guys who are great welterweights who lost to, and they were stopped against the guys in their division. We have Thomas Hearns in one corner. We got Errol Spence Jr. in one corner. We have two guys who I think have the styles to give each other problems. I think Spence, with his body work, with his fundamentals and his gas tank, I think could give Tommy problems. We've seen Hearns start really good late, but if someone's able to get inside of him, like Ray Leonard was able to get inside on him, work that body and wear him down. Hearns was clearly cutting, just like Spence, they were both cutting a shit ton of weight to get down to 147. They were both healthier. Spence will be healthier at 154 and 160, just like Tommy was too. But Hearns, man, he's got that speed, he's got that reach, and he's got that one-punch power. That right hand is a southpaw killer. That's going to be tough for Spence to get out of the way of. So set the scene for this fight and give us our pick. We got Tommy Hearns and we got Errol Spence Jr. in a welterweight classic. What you got?
Man, you look, and I told you this before we came on. I hadn't even made my pick yet, because to me these guys are even more similar than, if that's possible, than Laila and Claressa. I mean, you can look at Laila and Claressa, they're damn near a mirror of each other. But what Bud and Tommy and the Hitman Hearns did, it's like, okay, you took Hitman Hearns and pretty much cloned him and made Errol Spence just a little bit younger, a little bit faster. You know what I'm saying? Cleaner shots. But I'm here to tell you though, bro, Tommy Hitman Hearns was a cold Medina back in the day. It's funny because I came up with this matchup and I still haven't figured it out. I'm stalling because I'm trying to.
Yeah. Do you want me to go first and kind of give you some time? Well, I can go first.
Ahead, bro. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Because a lot of people say I'm younger, so I might have the bias towards the fighters who I've gotten to see fight live. I love me some Errol Spence. I picked him against Terrence Crawford. That ended up backfiring on me. I'd love to pick him against Tommy Hearns, but I just can't. I can't. I gotta roll with the Hitman on this one. I just think that the length he has, if Errol's going to get inside of that length, I think he can give him problems. Like I said, working him to the body and stuff like that. I just think it's a hell of an ass to get inside that reach. I think that Tommy's so quick too, where Errol, I think even a few years ago, was quicker than he is now, but still just, I just think that the style matchup is tough for him because Errol's always gotten hit and he's always been able to dish out more than he's taken. So he's always been good. And Tommy's kind of been the same way with that. He's always been kind of been there to be hit too. But I think if he's on his toes and Tommy's kind of more boxing a bit and not just fighting, it's interesting too, though. If Hearns fights the way he did against Hagler, I think that gives Errol Spence a great chance to win. If Tommy's up on his toes the way he was in the beginning of the Sugar Ray Leonard fight and he's kind of paw shot and he's counter punching, I think that's when that right hand over the top can give Spence problems. And unfortunately, it kills me to even say it because I'm a big as a Spence guy as anybody. But I think I got Tommy Hearns at some point by TKO later on in the fight.
So here's where I'm hurting right now, right? Is Tommy Hearns' only loss as a welterweight was to Sugar Ray Leonard, who's one of the best, period, But then it's like, okay, well, Errol Spence's only loss at welterweight was against Bud Crawford. You know what I mean? Now Tommy went all the way up to light heavyweight, and he's got a heavyweight reach. He's got a 78-inch reach. You know what I'm saying? 78-inch reach. Come on, bro. Then you got to look at, okay, where does this fight happen? Does this fight happen at 147? Or do they try to make it at 154? Right? So if we do it at 154, I would have, if we do it at 154, I'm saying Errol Spence. If it's at 147, you can't pick against Tommy Hitman Hearns, bro. Like the only person I could say would beat him is Sugar Ray. And that went what? 14, 15 rounds?
Put it this way, if that's a 12-round fight like today, Tommy Hearns wins a decision. So it even more to this point, that was a competitive-ass fight. He was winning.
So he gets knocked out because it's a 15-round fight. In a 12-round fight, though, you give me a 12-round fight with in the welterweight division, I got to take Tommy, bro. I got to take Tommy. Now, at 154, that's a different conversation because I do think Errol Spence has been killing himself. And we're talking pre-accidents, Errol Spence, right? Since we're doing prime versus prime. You give me pre-accident Spence at 154, shit. Because I think Spence right now at 154 is a problem. A huge problem, right? So when you look at it that way, damn, bro, I gotta go Hearns. I got to, because like you said, if the Sugar Ray fight was a 12-round fight, Tommy Hitman Hearns is undefeated at welterweight, bro. You know what I'm saying? But you got to respect what Errol was doing before he ran into Bud Crawford. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like, how does Bud close out his career? Like Bud's probably gonna go down as one of the GOATs at pretty much period, right? So it's like, can you even count that against him? Like, yeah, he got his ass whooped, but against the dude, he's universally recognized as the pound for pound champ right now. You know what I'm saying? That's like, that would be like holding Canelo's loss to Floyd against him. Like, come on, bro. Yeah, really. You know what I'm saying? Especially when they fought, Canelo was still kind of young, you know. But come on, bro. Uh, but man, you almost got to flip a coin. But for me, like you said, at welterweight, Tommy Hitman Hearns, bro. That and and his power was like that was some heavyweight type power.
Nah, it
Yeah,
wasn't a fact. And even we got, or even here, our guy was saying that he's got to go with the Motor City Cobra, which I always like that nickname too. I know he went to the Hitman, but Motor City Cobra was a cold nickname too. So I always like to see when he's referred by that too. But he said his use of controls to avoid inside fighting is overlooked nowadays. You had no choice but to trade with him. That would clearly favor him over Spence. And this was my point, was I think the speed disparity is probably too great for Spence to overcome. And Spence has very underrated speed too. But I just think that Tommy Hearns, if he's able to throw that right hand in there, I think especially against a southpaw, I think that could be a recipe for disaster against Spence. So if you're picking Tommy Hearns, is it by decision? You see him stopping Spence, or what's your official kind of pick on that one?
at 147, he's knocking him out, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I think because of the length, right? That reach, people don't understand. Like the fact that Ray Leonard was able to go 14 rounds with him lets you know how great of a fighter Sugar Ray Leonard really was, bro.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody else that's going those rounds with him back in that day because he was at his prime. I believe those. I know he went on to win some belts, you know, at the higher weights or whatever, right? But to me, Tommy Hitman Hearns at 147, that was the best version of him, in my opinion. And I think he smokes anybody not named Sugar Ray Leonard at 147. Period. It was just too much, bro. And you look at the problem I have is I love Spence, bro. I
Mm-hmm.
was on the fence literally until we did our James Toney interview talking
Mm-hmm.
about in my head there was no way Spence loses to Bud. Then James, he's a Hall of Famer for a reason. So you got to listen to the man. But you look at what Spence did and you go, well, shit, it's hard to pick against this dude at 147 too, because he's, look at
Mm-hmm.
his resume at 147, bro. But I think when you look at, like Backyard Prophet says, I know you got a different name on there, but I'm calling you Prophet to, that's who you are, sir. But when you look at what Prophet said, the speed, the length, and the power, and again, underestimated boxing IQ, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that Spence doesn't have all those things. I just think Hearns was a notch above, bro. And but at 154, we could have a different conversation. At 147, nah. Tommy, the Motor City Cobra Hitman Hearns.
Mm-hmm.
Put some respect on his name.
No, it's a fact. And I think even at 54, I'd favor Tommy in that fight. I guess I want to see what Spence would look like at 54. Even if this isn't the prime version of him, it would be cool to see him back in the ring to see what he's got left to compare. But I just think that Tommy would win. We got our guy also saying brutal and spectacular stoppage, similar to the Duran stoppage. Well, maybe I'm happy that this fight ain't gonna happen because I don't know if I could
Yeah.
after what we saw my guy Spence go through in July. I don't know if I could take that. So I guess I'm happy that this fight's staying on the fantasy side of things.
Duran was at 154. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? And that's one of those things where it'd be hard for me to compare because even if we get Spence at 154, I think those accents really took way more out of him. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I said pre-accident Spence at 154. I don't know if I could because we haven't seen him at 154 yet. It's hard to gauge it, but I'm trying to tell you, if he's not having to cut and drain and do all this to make the weight, I think Spence he's a cold motherfucker. He's special. He's different. Yeah, man. You're right though. Like even now that I think about it like that, like Hitman at 154, bro.
Yeah, because then the same things you're saying about he would be able to rehydrate more. The same thing goes for Hearns. They were both killing themselves to make 47. So to me, it helps Spence out, but it's almost a wash because I think it might help Tommy just as much going up to 154. Also, his gas tank would be better at 154. He wouldn't wear out the way he did at 47 down the stretch of fights too. So to me, it's kind of a wash if they move up in weight.
And what he did to Duran was, I mean, that was
Yeah.
ooh. Woo. Yeah, I mean, I will say this though. I don't think it's quick. I do think this goes at least 6 rounds, right? But I do think that it's a one punch out cold knockout. Like I think it's I don't I don't think he needs a barrage of punches, right? I don't think he needs to do what Bud did and just accumulate damage. He's gonna put Spence to sleep in like the 6th round. But I think Spence will have his moments up till like it's gonna be one of those fights where it's fight of the year as long as it lasts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even with Spence, he better be locked in from that opening bell because all it takes, like I said, one right hand could end the whole fight. So I do think he could do some things, but I just think, as we were saying, as Backyard Prophet was saying, just the speed kills. And I just think that to me, that speed would be the thing that would kill Errol Spence in that fight. And I think that Toney Hearns would end up winning.
I mean, bro, you're talking about a guy with what 66 fights, 66, 67 fights, some shit like
Something
that.
like that, yeah.
61 wins, bro, and he was fighting Hall of Famers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, shit.
No, exactly. And that's why I think I give us a lot of credit for our matchmaking skills too, because the fact that you're going back and forth like this on both fights shows that we ain't picking no one side easy kind of fights to pick either too. So I think that it's what makes us better to go back and forth even when we disagreed in the last fight. It's a lot funner to do this than to just say, oh, this person watches this person. Oh, you agree. All right, next fight. Like it's a lot better to kind of do it this way without a doubt.
Yeah, because you think about it, right? Ali and Claressa, neither one of them are washing the other, bro.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a Claressa finna just whoop the shit out of Laila Ali or vice versa. That's gonna be a good ass fight, close ass fight, no matter how it goes, right? No matter who you pick to win. Even if Claressa, like let's say we all riding the Claressa train. She wins that fight. She's taking something to get there, right? She's gonna have to go through some things. Same thing with Laila. You look at this fight, right? We both picking Spence to lose, but Tommy gonna go through some shit to get that dub, bro. Like this ain't finna be no easy way, bro. So it's one of them things where I don't think it's as easy as the Duran fight, but I think it's a more spectacular knockout because I think it's gonna be one of those. It'll be like the Marquez knockout of Pacquiao, bro.
Okay.
That's how clean it'll be. It'll just be sloop and sleep. You know what I'm saying? But it's gonna be a good ass fight up to that point.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, I'll say I think the Duran knockout is still as clean as almost it could possibly get too. But yeah, but I see what you're saying there. And the last thing I'll say on this fight, just with this comment here too, is Spence is a tremendous technical fighter, but he's gotten rocked several times and he doesn't have one punch power. If Tommy hurts you, you don't recover. That's my thing. For all the things I'm saying, Spence is gonna have to close the distance. He's gonna have to get inside. He's gonna have to work the body. Well, to get inside, you're gonna have to get past that right hand. And I think the problem is, even if he does, like you're saying, work good to the body in moments, I think that right hand's gonna come sooner rather than later. I think when it comes, it's gonna be tough for him.
And this is why we fuck with all the people that rock with us every week. They come in and they get into the comments is because Backyard just get he had to give me actually gave me pause. I was like, well, hold on, wait a minute, you're right. I want to know what you guys think because we're gonna do another one next week, right? Well, we'll create one next week. We don't know exactly when we'll put it out for you, but I'd like to see who you guys would like to see fight each. Some of your fantasy fight picks. We're not saying we'll do them all, but it'd be nice to see what you guys think. And are you fucking with the series so far? Is that something you want to continue to see us do? But I'll be honest with you, like we picked these two fighters, and I was still like, well, shit, because usually you do a fantasy fight and you go, oh no, I know who would win that. I don't know, man. I literally made my mind up on air, but it's one of those things, bro. Toney Hearns is Toney Hearns, bro.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. I think he would end up pulling it out. It's a great fight, a great matchup, but I think we've basically touched on everything. I'll go back to Jesus. Had a few questions. Any fights on tonight? So he's got Marv Nation as a card tonight. I think Fernando Vargas Jr., someone we mentioned earlier, is actually fighting on that card. I know Albert Bell, who somebody else mentioned earlier, is also fighting on a separate card. I think it's off TV. I'm not sure if there's a way to watch it. I hope there is because he's a great fighter. I know our guy, James Toney, is fighting in a pay-per-view against Razor Reddick tonight. But besides that, I think that's all we got for fights. And then Jesus saying, did you watch Callum Walsh? So I did watch Callum Walsh fight last night. He got the win, but same thing as you, Jesus. I agree 100%. He's not ready. I think people are saying he's ready for the top 15. I wouldn't say that just yet. I'm not sure. He's got the big backing by Dana White, but I think that they might be putting almost too much pressure on him, calling him the future of the sport, this and that. He's a good prospect, don't get me wrong. I just want to see. I'm not sure where to rate him yet, per se. I think he's got to tighten some things up, especially on the defensive side, but he'll be in some fun fights, but I'm not sure that he's going to be some superstar world champion or anything like that. But he'll continue to get better each and every fight. Good learning experience for him. It's always good to have a learning experience to get dropped in a fight that you're going to win rather than a fight you lose. So he's still undefeated. Be interested to see where he goes going forward. But before we have you give your whole spiel about supporting local boxing and all those things, is there anything you want to say about our guy James Toney and his mega fight that he's got tonight in Jamaica?
Hey, look, man. Me and James, I got that man's personal phone number. I'm always pick James Toney and shit like this. I would have preferred not to see him out here doing this mess, but I understand it's the world we're in now. Hey, more power to him. Get your money. You know what I'm saying? Hopefully it's all for fun. It's charity. They're out there trying to raise money. But I think that he beats Razor Ruddock just because he's one of the slickest boxers I've ever watched. Period. I did want to say for any of you guys that are DAZN subscribers, there is a title fight on tonight: Irma Garcia versus Stephanie Silva, and I think let's see, they got Jose Luis Castillo Romero on the undercard. So there are that's the Fernando Vargas undercard you were talking about, and there's some fight over in England. I don't know any of these people, but the zone's got some stuff going on tonight. But this is pretty much a real slow weekend for for bigger fights. Obviously next weekend or next week is when we get the big stuff.
Yeah, that's a fact. So we appreciate you plugging that in for us. So I knew some of them, but we got Nibs to plug here too. So we are all good. We're good a few now. I like some of these matchups. We won't even get into them now because we could spend a whole nother hour talking about them. But there's a pretty damn good chance that some of these could end up on one of our episodes. I know there's at least one right here that I know for a fact I'm going to throw in there at some point. We'll talk about that afterwards, though. Another great show. We've done it 14 episodes in, right? With 14 episodes, if they've been through 1 through 13, they know how we wrap up these episodes by now, too. So if you want to put them onto some game about what they should be doing and how they should be able to support just the sport of boxing, not just the stars, but also some of the guys in the come up that we see, too.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, you guys hear me say this every week. If you've been rocking with us, if you're new to the channel, then you're going to hear this if you stick around. Every week I tell people, go out there, find out where your local boxing is. I know a lot of people have been asking me, well, they don't know how to follow local fighters because they just follow the big stuff. Look, Google is your friend. We have this thing called the internet. If you Google, whatever your city is, Spokane, Tucson, New York, New Jersey, if you live in Willacoochee, Georgia, you understand me? You can find local boxing, right? Just whatever your city is, put in boxing next to it and hit enter. And if it isn't in your direct city, there's probably something around your city to go to. The reason I continue to tell people to support local boxing is because every single person we talk about on this show started in one of these fights on one of these cards that nobody was paying attention to, that didn't show up on TV, that isn't getting talked about on shows or platforms like this or ESPN or the big boys or any of that. But they are who they are now because people in their community showed up and showed out for them, not just on the local stages, but when they went to the Olympics, when they went to World Championships, people supported them. So the guys you are supporting now might end up being world champions someday. And you know what? Even if they don't, a lot of these guys are just trying to feed their families. So please go ahead, support your local boxing. And we, again, here at ITR and Catch and Counter, we put our money where our mouth is. Jack stays going to local events. Me and Felix have been to local events here. People always show up. It's always a great time. And you know what? You get to meet some guys that, again, you'll see on TV one day.
That's a fact. So we got Jesus doing a little plug job, giving us another fight for tonight. And we have also saying if you're in the North Carolina area, hit him up. He probably knows some guys in the general area. And like we said, if you guys ever have any rising amateur fighters, pro fighters, anything like that that you guys think deserve a spotlight, hit us up also, because we're always down to kind of share the spotlight and give these guys their shine too before they get to the big spot. So we appreciate that. We appreciate all y'all in the chat for helping us kind of flow through this discussion, giving us some things to think about for some of these things, because we have our notes we prepare, but it also helps us out when you guys give the comments. We got a very knowledgeable, we got a pretty good chat. I'd say they know a lot that's going on. We don't have any trolls or anything in the chat. We've been blessed with that so far, so we appreciate all that. Fights on Thursday, so we should be back Friday night. If we are, it's a rare recap episode on a Friday of fights the night before, so the Top Rank show will be then. I don't think there's anything crazy on Saturday, but then the week after that will be Benavidez and Andrade. Then we get into a bunch of big fights in December. So, Nibs, 14 down, a lot more to go. Appreciate you, my guy, and we'll be back next Friday.
We'll see you at 15, baby.
Yes, sir. All right, we'll catch y'all. Have a